Whenever we have issues. Mental illness is one of the ailments that a lot of Africans have overlooked over the years. People accuse mamepo, or they think and accuse relatives of giving this particular disorder to them. Some call it disorder, some say it's actually an illness that people go through. Today in this program, we're going to learn whether or not it is caused by this mamepo, or it's something that can be treated, or it's something that is actually, we should write it off. You see, other people say drugs or stress or actual mamepo is what causes mental illness. You see, Zimbabwe is experiencing a high level of unemployment, as well as the economy has really taken a toll on a lot of people. So they escape and drug themselves, drink themselves silly, and get lost in a world that escapes from the reality of what is going on in this world. Yes, that particular situation can force or push somebody into a mental breakdown or further into an illness. Today, this show is going to answer whether or not it is drugs, stress, mamepo, or it is something that is actually chemically imbalanced in a human being. We're going to have a show called I Overcame Mental Illness. There's a young man who's going to converse with us about that particular journey that he went through. My name is Sokostina, and welcome to Issues Pane, Nyaya. Joining me on sign language is Sipho Esihle Ndlovu. And we're so excited to have Sign on our show today. But more so, I have Leonard in the studio. How are you doing, Leonard?
Well, thank you, Celestina.
Leonard, tell me a bit more about yourself and your trade.
Well, I sit here as a counselor.
Okay.
And I've been doing this for 10 years now.
10?
Since I trained, yes.
Right.
And basically, it's coming to walk alongside anyone with any issue they may want to resolve. Listen to them, help them think through their issues, give them skills to work with whatever destabilizing situation they may be going through to find a solution that best suits what they desire to do in life.
Right.
It's basically what I do. So I call myself an enabler. I enable you to be who you want to be, the best way you can be who you want to be.
You see, me, I like to be enabled into other things. So I'm wondering, are you completely enabling in every situation? But you see, we have a young man here, Leonard, who went through mental illness. And of course, we're going to introduce him and what's something that shows us this journey that he went through. But would you say mental illness is an actual thing in Zimbabwe? Are we ignoring it?
Well, it's inhumanity.
Okay.
It is. A human being is body, physical, you see. A human being is mind, is soul.
Right.
So I heard when you read your intro, you touched on spiritual or spiritism-related issues. All those issues are real in a human being, and they will affect your mental health. So yes, it's real. And the first step to resolving any issue is acceptance. So let's accept that any one of us can face mental health issues. Then we'll be able to get help.
Do we work among people who are mentally ill? Can you tell if someone is mentally ill?
I can, and yes, there are people who can give us a definitive diagnosis, which is level of psychologists and psychiatrists. And that there tells us that even from a medicine, clinical perspective, you can come to a place of concluding, yes, Leonard here, this is a mental health issue. This is not just an emotional issue.
Right. So we're going to take a small break and also get into a video that talks to a young man or shows the journey of a young man who actually went through mental illness. My question is, could I be mentally ill? Could you be mentally ill? I mean, can you even tell? We'll find out after the break.
Generally, society has a tendency of shying away from tackling matters that disrupt the status quo. Instead, such discussions are either avoided. As a result, attitudes are created and truth reinvented. On this platform, we dare to venture into those territories. This is Issues Pane, Nyaya.
Mukoki, and I live in Budiriro 5. I was born in a family of 6, and I am the 5th born. We grew up in a family that we were not going to, we did not go to church, but we knew that God is there. I went to Guiniro Primary from grade 1 to grade 6. And then I went to Budiriro 5 primary for my grade 6 and 7. And then I went to Mfakose 1 high for my form 1 to up to O level. It all started when I finished my O level. I was about 16 years old. That's when I started experimenting with so many things, of which I got entangled in alcohol. I was drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. I started working when I was still a young kid, or should I say a teenager. That's when I started working. So I had the money to buy the stuff with. So that's why I started drinking beer and experimenting with cigarettes. Yeah. So I think peer pressure was not involved in all those things because I was still young, and my fellow friends were still young, that they were not involved in such things. I was actually involved with older people than me. I think that's why I started drinking, because I was coping from what they were doing. When I turned 22, that's when I got deeper into smoking banje. I had gone to South Africa looking for greener pastures. So I think I was failing to repress my sorrows of staying away from family and friends. So I turned to smoking drugs instead. It was very deep. I was so much into drugs that I would take about 12 blunts per day. I would heavily smoke that to the extent that I would not know where I was or what I was doing, or there's this certain point in time where I actually thought I was dying after taking a lot of drugs. I thought I was dying, and it was so intense that it took me some time to recover from that incident. So yeah, it was very deep. Like, I was always taking drugs. I was always with a blunt wherever I was. I decided to go into therapy when I was admitted at Harada Hospital in 2017. That's when I decided all this has to stop, because I had seen what it was doing to other young teenagers and other youths who I was sharing the hospital with. So that's when I decided I had to stop all this drugs and alcohol thing. I met Professor Dixon Chibanda and Hopo Chingono as they were shooting the documentary State of Mind. So from there, I decided to stop taking drugs because I wanted to focus more on my music, and I wanted the thing to end. Ndaida kuti zvingopera, and ndandanyanyonetseka stereki zvekuti zvaisvika pakundishungurudza zvekuti ndanga ndisisina kana mufaro kana kufunga kuti ramangwana rangu richazenge rakamira sei. Ndanga ndisisina tariro muupenyu hwangu. Saka ndakangodecide kuti ko ndikambomira kusmoka madrugs ndimboona kuti zvinofamba sei. Ndo pandakazoregedza kuputa mbanje, asi zvanga zvisiri easy nekuti temptation yanga yakawanda. I was still playing with the same people, vaiita zvembanje, vaiita zvedoro. Saka pavanenge vari paipai vachimwa doro vaigona kungonditi chimbouya mboita sei umbonwawo doro, but inini ndaa munhu asisade izvozvo. Saka I decided to change shamwari dzandinotamba nadzo, because ndo kumwe kunobva pressure yekuti kwaibva pressure yekuti ndiite zvemadrugs. Saka ndakazosiyana nemamwe mafriends andakasiyana nawo, and ndo pandakatanga kuona kuti ndichiri netime yekugadzirisa panga pakakanganisika, uye ndichiri netime yekugadzirisa ramangwana rangu. Pandaishanda ndaishandira kuchisipiti, saka ndaigara kumabvuku nanasekuru wangu, and vanasekuru wangu vanga vari vanhu vaifarira zvekunwa doro stereki. Saka ndo kwakatangira zvese zvedoro nefodya ikoko kwanasekuru. Asi pandakazodzoka ndakugara nemaparents angu pandaiita zvemadrugs, mai vangu vaitombosvika pakuchema dzimwe nguri kuti asi chii chiri kumboitika newe, nekuti ndaiti ndikaputa mbanje mudhu yangu yabva yatochinja. Ndaibva ndatoratidza kuti ndaane kumwe kufungisisa kwakanyanya kwekuti handichakwanisa kana kutaura nemunhu kana kuita sei, ndenda kungonyarara. Saka ndainyanyozvidya pfungwa stereki. And about my parents, kubva pakutanga pandakatanga kunzi ndakurwara nepfungwa, pakatanga psychosis, havana kumboda kumbotsvaga zvinhu zvakawanda kuti kune maprofita, kune n'anga, mwana wedu ari kuroyiwa kana kuti chii. Vakangonanga neni kuchipatara nekuti vaiziva kuti ndiri kuita zvekuputa mbanje. Saka ndo chimwe chinhu chandakaona chakandibatsira stereki about my parents. Vakakwanisa kuona kuti chipatara chinoshanda kudarika zvimwe zvese. Pamwe dei takaenda kun'anga izveso vakatokonana nedzimwe hama kuburikidza zvichinzi ndo vari kundiroya kana kuti chii. Kana neni ndaitombofungidzirawo futi kuti ndakaroyiwa. Unongoziva zvinoita mbanje kana wakarohwa nembanje, unongochingofunga zvinhu zvakawanda stereki. Saka ndaifunga kuti pamwe ndakaroyiwa ndichitombofunga kuti pamwe mudzara wangu ndiye ari kundiroya. Chandingati the craziest thing chakaitika pandaiputa mbanje kana kuti pandakarwara nembanje ndichiri kuzviziva kuti zvii zvakaitika. Ndakamuka ari makuseni, ndandisina kutorara the previous night, and the previous night yacho ndandisina kurara for 2 days maybe. Saka iranga rare 3 day ndisina kurara. Saka ndanga ndane too much energy yakawandisa mubody mangu zvekuti ndaingofila kuti ndinofana kutoburisa energy iyoyo. Saka ndakatora zibhegi ranga riri mumba medu rimwe zihombe rakadai so, ndabva ndaenda naro paroom yesister yangu. She's married to a Nigerian guy. Saka inini mupfungwa mangu ndaitoti maNigerian ane mari, saka ngaazadze bhegi iri nemari. Sister payakazviona kuti ndo zvaakuitika, akabva atiza bva apinda muroom make. Saka paakanopinda muroom make achitonditiza, ndikati ukutotiza. Saka apa ndakutoita sei? Ndakutopaza door. Ndo pandakatanga kukika door area zvine simba. Apa iye akakiya door nemukati, ndabva ndatraya kukika door. Ndo pakazobuda moms vachiti ko chii chiri kuitika. Ndo pavakatozoona kuti nyaya yacho yatokwidza makati. Saka ndo zvimwe zvezvinhu. Nepamwe pandakambofamba for about 40 kilometers ndisingazive kwandiri kuenda, ndichingoteera ma-hallucinations, ma-visual hallucinations andaiona nemamwe ma-hallucinations andainzwa, ndichingoteera zvinhu izvozvo. Saka dzimwe nguri, mumwe musi ndakatomborara ndakamira negumbo 1 usiku hwese kunosvika mangwana makuseni, ndikapfuma gumbo rangu rakazvimba kudai so. Pamwe pacho ndaimbomhanya zvekungoramba ndichingomhanya ndisinganete, ndichingomhanya chete nesango. Ndotombofungidzira kuti kwandave kuno sango racho handirizive, taigara kumapurazi. Sango racho handirizive, kwandiri kwacho handikuzive, but nenyasha dzaMwari ndaizongoona ndadzokera kumba. Saka zvinhu izvozvo ndiri kuona zvichiitika kumayouths akawanda. Zviri kuitika mumastreets edu zvekuti ndikazviona ndinonzwa mwoyo wangu uchida kuti zvinhu zvakaita seizvozvo zvipere.
Welcome back to Issues Pane Nyaya. If you're just joining us, my name is Sokostina, and as you can see, Rejoice is sitting out this one, and I'm sure she'll be back soon. And on sign language, I have Sipoe Sihle Ndlovu, who's taking care of those that are differently abled. Well, I would like to totally applaud Claudius Leonard. Like, I'm so glad he's back to his senses, in quotes, and that he can actually talk about this journey. But as I was listening to what he was talking about, I thought it's important for us to demystify or explain the essence of mental illness. What is mental illness?
Well, as he said, you are not capable to take care of what you think.
Okay.
So it is a condition which is medically recognized. There are various names to them, and I'm not the expert there, so I'll leave that to the psychiatrists and psychologists.
Okay.
But what we need to know is that if you are human with a body like this, anything can affect how you think, how you process events around you.
All right.
So you fail, therefore, to think like we all do. So he is seeing a bag and he says, I want money from my Nigerian brother-in-law.
Oh, he's
a
standing
general
on
person
one leg
on
and
one leg.
sleeping all night.
Right. Your mind is not where it ought to be. So any one of us can suffer from that. For him, it's substance abuse that
Okay.
then affected that process of thinking. For others, it could be trauma
Right.
that leads you to that level of instability in what you think. For some, it could be a tumor in your head,
Okay.
which then causes that imbalance.
Right.
So it is therefore a recognizable and a condition which we need to watch out for.
Mm-hmm.
For most of the cases he's talking about, which are some of the children we see, I've worked with some of them on the streets, as street children work, it is real. What we need, as I said earlier, is to accept, acknowledge that this can happen to any one of us, to any one of our children, and there's help.
Yeah, because he, in the video, and I'm glad I'm going to talk to him later, it seems he wasn't, like, can you take responsibility for mental illness, or it completely becomes no longer your problem, like it's out there?
Well, for him, he didn't even recognize that he had a problem.
Right.
Until he says those prompters came. So for him, the substance had taken over his life.
So are you saying he probably had mental illness before? He had something not balanced before, then it got triggered by abuse?
It can happen either way.
Right.
If you have underlying conditions, then you take substances, then it exacerbates. For some, it's induced by the substance abuse, especially with mbanje in our context, which I think is the easiest drug to access. That's very common for young people who will go on to drugs, depending on them, addicted to them, to end up with psychosis of one kind or another. So they had no problems. He was 16 when he started, so highly likely probably nothing was happening.
Right.
Then he went on to substance abuse, and then it leads to those problems.
So mental illness and mental stress are then two different things? Because you're saying he was 16. I mean, I'm thinking what could be stressing him at 16? Is mental stress and mental illness the same thing?
They are different things. You and I will go through mental stress.
Why?
Because we are emotionally charged, challenged.
Right.
Therefore, we are thinking, like he's saying, he would then end up depressed, right? He is going through mental issues that he's trying to process. Whatever it was, we don't know what it was for him. So you and I could be thinking of, what am I going to do with my 16-year-old who is now exposed to this and that, who is failing? Is he going to pass exams this coming year after COVID?
Oh, I'm just stressed about his mental illness even.
It can push you to that level.
Does it push me to mental illness? Do you sometimes end up with mental illness from stress?
It does happen. I'll give you examples for women.
Right.
Situations like postpartum depression.
Postnatal depression. Yeah.
Right? You've given birth and something just happens in you. It doesn't happen in every woman, but you just can't understand what's happening. You get depressed to the extent you don't want to feed the child. You reject the child.
I should explain to people what really happens as postnatal. It's because the attention has moved from mother to child. So you're angry at the child, basically.
But ultimately, for some people, we need to take them in for medication.
You actually need to be medicated for that?
It can get that far, yes.
And men have mental stress. What could cause men mental stress?
Men, it's how am I going to support these 6 children?
Why having 6? I'm just saying.
Because mother wants to keep men.
Okay. Oh, really? That is...
But maybe because men thought it was fun, let me have another woman, sidekick, before you realize it's 6 children out of 4 women.
All right.
This is not what I intended to do. It can be pressure enough. It could be just how do I run this business? And I've worked with executives who are under pressure enough to be dependent. They're not addicted, but depending on substance. Now they're dysfunctional. It affects how they decide work, how they relate. Sexual abuse issues can come from there because you failed to cope with the stress of running a business.
Right.
So mental stress is a reality. It doesn't necessarily end in mental illness, but if not attended to, which is where counseling, which is where psychologists come in.
Which is where we actually are going to say, what can people, let's start with mental stress before we get to mental illness. What are some of the steps that people can take to first recognize they're mentally stressed and then to walk through and get better out of mental stress?
We generally say Sokostina is mature.
Oh, okay. Isn't that pressure on its own?
Well, it's just a statement I'm putting across.
Okay.
But if you listen carefully and try to understand what's in maturity is how we work with our emotions.
Right.
So most of us, our education, our socialization processes are not allowing us to get in touch, number one, with our emotions. Well, in the first instance, we don't know them.
We don't know our emotions.
A lot of us, we don't know. What are you feeling? It's no bore. It's no radza. I'm fine. I'm okay.
What would you say
sad.
if I asked you, how are you feeling?
Right now,
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit under stress.
Okay.
Because you're asking me tough questions.
Okay, touche.
But I am also overjoyed.
Okay.
Because I'm doing what I enjoy, enabling others.
Okay, no, I wanted to check if you could actually express your emotions.
We need to know to get in touch with our emotions. So please, if it's possible, I don't know, whatever source, libraries are all over the place. Log on and find out, how do I express anger? What constitutes anger, from frustration to irritation all the way to I'm outraged? It's anger, and it's a whole range of them. So we need to understand that so that when it happens, something blocks you from your goal, you get angry. That's basically the equation of anger. You want to achieve something and I'm standing in your way, you get angry.
Okay.
And you are responsible for your emotions. And the emotions in themselves are the body, the system's natural way of responding. They're neither wrong nor right.
Right.
It's just anger.
Okay.
It's just anxiety.
So-
it's just depression.
So that is where mental stress starts from. The inability to first express yourself and not identify what the stressor is, and then how then to work around the stressor.
That's where the problem is.
Okay.
What do I do now that I am feeling this way? In the first instance, I don't know what I'm feeling. So we move quickly from attending to how I'm feeling, which I don't know and have no skills to work with.
Yes.
But the trigger, the activating event still remains.
So
I don't know how to feed my family, still remains.
So how do we encourage people to, what are people supposed to do to get over mental stress? What are some of the things that we can encourage people to do? Let's talk to the people who are watching us today.
Number one is look for a counselor. Talk to someone. And counseling is a skill.
Okay.
So there's a lot of counseling happening with an atete, with a friend.
Also, it's
It does
anyone.
help.
Doesn't have to be a paid counselor.
There's a place where you need, it don't have to be paid, but you need to find a skilled counselor.
Okay.
And where we are going now, there's going to be, in fact, developing counseling to a cadre within the mental health provision services. So it's going to be recognized, accredited, licensed. So you will soon be looking for those counselors like that. So it's important to evaluate, where am I at? If I talk to Mai, if I talk to Sekuru, if I talk to Mbuya, and I just don't feel the same, I still remain struggling,
Right.
escalate.
Okay.
You go to a counselor. A counselor will look and say, is this my issue or not? Then they can reference to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, depending on what your need is. But
Give
what's
me-
important is
yeah.
acknowledge and seek out for help.
That's it. You just need to acknowledge and seek
Seek
out
out
for
for
help.
help.
So
Well, that's the first part.
the
what you need
second
to
part.
do.
I
The
only
second
have
part
like-
is let's be talking about these issues.
We
How
shouldn't
can
sweep
you
them under the
minimize the
carpet.
stressors?
Okay.
So Claudius is talking of parents who acknowledged and accepted that, hey, we have an issue,
Right.
and they went for help. So let's be able to talk like he's doing about what he's facing.
Okay.
And
to
a lot
not
of us don't talk.
shame people who come out and say, I am stressed or I had mental illness. We shouldn't do that to people.
Someone says, I'm depressed. Ah, it's just better.
No, stay strong. Simba,
Come, let's listen.
Okay.
What's happening? Even that Murume cries. Let him cry. It's actually more manly to cry when you have to cry than not to cry.
Oh, you heard it. It's more manly to cry than hearing. I don't know. Leonard has his own thing. So I know we didn't totally exhaust what I was supposed to exhaust with Leonard, but I actually want to talk to Claudius because there are people who were surrounding him, people that were experiencing what he was going through. And I know he had family, he had sisters, he has, brothers, aunts and uncles, as mentioned. For him to actually get to a place where it's like, okay, I am ready to do this. That's what we want to find out. Soon after the break, we'll have that conversation.
Generally, society has a tendency of shying away from tackling matters that disrupt the status quo. Instead, such discussions are either avoided. As a result, attitudes are created and truth reinvented. On this platform, we dare to venture into those territories. This is Issues Pane, Nyaya.
And welcome back to the third and final segment of Issues Pane Nyaya. My name is Sokostina, and joining me on sign language is Sipo Esihle Ndlovu. Welcome, Claudius. Thank you. Well, I'm so impressed kuti unogona kutotaura zviri pamoyo pako wobuda pachena kuti inini dzakambotacha.
Yeah, zveshuwa dzakambotacha izvozvo handinyari kutaura kozi zvichatobatsirawo vakawanda.
Okay, so how do you know? I just want to know, how do you know right now kuti hadzisi kutacha kana dzichiri straight? Kana separate?
Right.
How do you tell?
Inini ndingangotaura nekuti nditori panapa nhasi.
Right.
Dei kuri kunzi ndiri kurwara pamwe ndingadei nditori muhospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was that serious?
Yeah, it was that serious. Zvekuti tingadei tisi kutombotaura pamwe mungadei muri kutonditya izvezvi.
Handikwate zvokumhanya. So Chindudza, I hear you now have a family.
Yeah, I have a family.
Saka, when you met your wife, did you tell her about this past that you had?
Well, anga atomboudzwawo nevanhu pavakaona ndichimufambira anga atomboudzwa kunzi asha munhu auri kudanana naye uyu akamborwara nepfungwa.
Okay. No, but what's the slang of kurwara nepfungwa?
Well, slang dzakawanda.
Okay.
Akambotwanya,
akambodhunya,
akambopenga,
zvikanzisiyana naye.
Zvikanzisiyana naye. Yeah, but iye sekundiudza kwakaita akati hazvina basa zvanga zvisinei naye zvavaitaura zvese izvozvo. Saka ndinotongotenda Mwari kuti akandida ndiri zvandiri.
Oh, nice. Mane vana vangani?
Tine vana 2.
Okay.
My twins.
My twins, how old are the twins?
2 years.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
So your parents, what do you often go and see them to just reassure them that uchiri mugwara ndichiri kuenda into the right direction? Vanotichi vabereki vako izvezvi?
Well, we're still staying together.
Okay.
Nevabereki vangu.
Is it because vanotya kuti uri kunogara wega kana kuti iwe ndosoda kubva kumba zvako?
Aiwa, ivo ndo vakatondirambidza kubva pamba.
Okay,
Not kuti vari kundityira kuti ndikanogara ndega zvinozotanga futi.
Okay.
Zvakatopera ndakatozisiya kumashure.
Okay.
Yeah, ivo kazhinji kacho vanowanzogara vari kumusha.
All right.
Saka inini nemhuri yangu ndinenge ndiri kupi? Ndiri kumba. Saka tingangoti tiri kugara tega.
Okay.
Ivo vanenge vasipo.
Saka kuriritira mhuri yako uri kugona hausati wamboita kana relapse unombodzokera mumashure kuti zvandibata futi, I've gone mentally ill again?
Well, relapse ndingangoti ndakapedzera kurwara last year muna December.
Okay. Chii changa chaitika kuti relapse?
Zvaikonzeresa ndezvekuti medication yandaipiwa kugomo kana ndingati kuHarare hospital yaindidhaka zvekuti ndanga ndisisina chimwe chinhu chandaiita. Saka mapiritsi yawo aindibhowa kunwa. Saka ndaizoregedza kuita sei.
Kati asungabhoekana nekuita normal. Was it?
Yeah, ndaizviziva kuti ndikasanwa mapiritsi ndinorwara, but ndandisina futi choice yekuti ndoita sei. Because ndandichitorwara mapiritsi acho aite.
Akawanda sei mapiritsi?
Well, anenge asina kumbonyanyowanda zvekudaro. Unogona kunwa 2 makuseni nemanheru 2.
Okay.
But ndakazoenda kwadoctor about the issue. Vakanondipa imwe medication. Ezvino ndakuita mapiritsi ekutenga. Saka andinotenga achona handina kana any after effect
problem
now.
So outside medication iri kuita chemically balance.
Yeah.
Chichimwe chaunoita kuti ubatsirike with your mental for you to remain mentally stable?
Well, ndinoita music.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no counseling there?
Well, counseling, kana ndichida counseling ndinoenda ku friendship bench kwandinoshanda.
Saka zvine kuida nekusaida. Don't you think you constantly need somebody wekutaura naye?
Yeah, kana ndichida I can tell kuti izvezvi ndikuda someone to talk to.
What triggers you to say that? What triggers you kuti ndakunida someone?
Ndongoona ndakunyanyofunga zvakawandisa. Pamwe pacho ndenge ndisisanyatsofunge zvakanaka.
Okay.
Saka ndinenge ndakuda someone wekutaura naye.
Alright.
Vanotozviziva ku friendship bench kuti ndobva ndatovaisira message. Can I have someone to talk to? Vobva vatondibhookira appointment ndoenda kunoningira.
I know it's not easy talking about your personal life and being on TV and being probed. It's because we also want to be in the mind and know kuti zvinenge zvichimbonyatsofamba sei. Kuti saka utiregerere kana unofunga kuti ndiri kunyanya pusha. Okay. So that you know. Because what I want to know is iwe chicha unenge uchiti uri kunyanyofunga kuti uzoti now I need to go to friendship bench. Just walk us through your most now I need to go to friendship bench.
Okay. Zvakawanda zvinofungwa nemunhu.
Okay.
Pamwe pacho unenge uchitonetseka kuti manje mhuri yangu ndichairaramisa sei.
Okay.
Kana kuti unenge une something chauri kuda muupenyu but chichinonoka kuuya. Saka pressure iyoyo yekuti something chauri kuda chiri kunonoka kuuya. In my case, inini hangu ndinoita zvemusic and ndinenge ndichida pandakapedzisira kuenda ku-session zvanga zvamusic nebusiness kuti ndotanga chii ndoita what else chandinokwanisa kuita apart from the job I have kuti chindipe mari. Saka zvinhu izvozvo zvidiki ndichizvitaura asi kana ndakuzvifunga
it becomes so big.
Zvinenge zviri zvihombe zvekuti ndogona kutotadza kana kutozvibatanidza zvikaita.
Saka do you sometimes feel discriminated? Unofungira kuti vanhu vanombokutarisa voti blaza hatisi kushanda nemi because zvinhu zvaasina kumbomira mushe.
Well, vakadaro variko.
Okay.
Kozoita vanotoda kushanda neni.
All right.
Sezvakaita imimi veku issues pane nyaya. And vanotoda kushanda neni. Saka inini ndinoshanda nevanoda kushanda neni. Vanoda kudiscriminate ndizvo ndingavaite sei ndo zvavanenge vafunga.
Well, we are educating them today and they're going to know and learn how best to work around with people who have gone through mental illness. So your wife, how do you support her? Because I know it sounds stressful the way I say it, that she is with you and anofana kugara ari on her feet to make sure you are well. Does she have a support system iye pachake able to support you?
Well, support system andingati anayo.
Okay. Don't you want to encourage her to have one?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. I think she has to go for counseling sometimes.
Okay.
Because pane imwe issue yekuti ndakatozoenda kwa doctor. Ndikati chimbondiudzewo kuti problem yandiri kusangana nayo ingave problem iri kukonzereswa nekurwara kwandakamboita here.
Okay.
Vakandiudza kuti
okay.
inotoriwo syndrome inotokonzereswa nekurwara kwandakaita.
Okay.
Yekuti ndinenge ndichifungidzira kuti mukadzi wangu is having an affair with someone.
Okay.
Saka izvozvo anotombogara achichema. But
what makes you feel insecure like that she's having an affair with somebody else?
I don't know. Doctor akanditi chirwere.
Okay.
Chakakonzereswa nekuputa kwandakaita madrugs.
Okay.
Chinouya after. Saka inini iko zvino ndakuziva kuti chirwere. Saka whenever pandinoita pfungwa dzakadaro ndinokwanisa kuzvidzora nekuti ndiri kuziva kuti chirwere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no time that you've ever been violent wafunga kuti maybe she's cheating on you?
Well, maybe pakungotaura.
Okay.
Yeah, pakungotaura. Ndogona kunge ndakataura zvimwe zvekuti zvakanosvika pakumurwadza.
Okay.
Anombochema. Kana zvauya ndikada kutaura zvandinenge ndichitaura anotombochema.
Okay.
Saka iyoyo ndo problem yandiri kudhila nayo at this moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Koma twins manje, because iwe uri kuona kuti whatever you do to self or to your wife affects the girls.
Yeah.
So how do you also, in the state that you are, make sure that the girls themselves don't grow up with so much mental stress that makes them end up probably with mental illness?
Well, I try to do everything. Kana kuri kunzi pane issue yakaita seyandiri kutaura. I try to do it privately. Tiri tega vasipo padhuze zvekuti vanoona mai vavo vachichema kana kuti anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus vasikana vangu ndinovada zvisingaiti, saka handidi kuti vange vanokura vachiziva kuti baba vavo vakambosangana nezvakadai so.
Okay.
But ndinodawo futi kuti vakure vaine a better mental health life yavo inenge iripo.
Vanonzani nani?
Mwanatsa ishe namutsa washe.
Well, you heard it. Mwari vanonatsa and uye mwari vanemutsa. And I really am positive, and with the energy that Claudius is showing us, that mental illness is something we live with, something we experience, but it's something that we can get over if we have people that surround us who want to help us through counseling, help us through medication, and of course help us through creating an environment that makes us a more healthier and balanced person. My name is Sokostina, and this is Issues Pane, Nyaya. We'll be right back.
Generally, society has a tendency of shying away from tackling matters that disrupt the status quo. Instead, such discussions are either avoided. As a result, attitudes are created and truth reinvented. On this platform, we dare to venture into those territories. This is Issues Pane, Nyaya. Generally, society has a tendency of shying away from tackling matters that disrupt the status quo. Instead, such discussions are either avoided. As a result, attitudes are created and truth reinvented. On this platform, we dare to venture into those territories. This is Issues Pane, Nyaya. Issues
aisa tsvaira 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 tsveta kudurunuru uyo mutoro zvigere mudundundu turira kune vamwe zvakazano mwachewe taura nesu mwachewe daiwa taura 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 nesu mwachewe zvakazano mwachewe taura nesu mwachewe daiwa taura 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 nesu mwachewe tambarara ndikutumbure munzopa unenge wabayiwa iwe apo pandatsika newe tsikawo furatira mhepo temapo yongeyo kuronda iwewe apo pandasvika newe svikawo ko wadirei kugara wega wega watorepi mufungo wakadai rarama nyangwe mutoro uremese ona mangwana nerimwe zuva tambarara ndikutumbure munzopa unenge wabayiwa iwe apo pandatsika newe tsikawo furatira mhepo temapo yongeyo kuronda iwewe kana pandasvika newe svikawo ko wadirei kugara wega wega watorepi mufungo wakadaro rarama nyangwe mutoro uremese ona mangwana nerimwe zuva taura nesu mwachewe daiwa taura 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 nesu mwachewe zvakazano mwachewe taura nesu mwachewe daiwa taura 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 nesu mwachewe dzingava nhaurwa zviitiko zvingakubvutire tariro mweya werufu nekokoonanira suo rendangariro aisa tsvaira 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 tsveta kudurunuru uyo mutoro zvigere